The house was wrapped in a deep, velvety quiet that only came after the rain had been falling for hours. Outside, the street lamp light bent and shimmered in the puddles on the driveway, each drop splattering into the silence with a soft insistence. From my bed, I could hear the slow hum of the refrigerator down the hall, the occasional creak of wood settling under the damp night air. Marcus and Eli had been over in the living room earlier, sprawled on the couch with snacks between them, some forgettable movie flickering on the TV. I'd watched with half my attention, caught up more in their easy laughter than in whatever was on the screen. Marcus had yawned first, declaring it was too late for another movie. He'd gone to his room, shutting the door behind him. Eli stayed behind for a moment, rinsing his glass in the kitchen, offering me a small good night before disappearing toward the guest room. I'd gone to bed after, telling myself the warmth I felt wasn't what I thought it was. Lying there now, the clock digits glowed faintly across the room, 2:56 a.m., and I was still awake. I replayed little moments from earlier without meaning to. The way Eli's hand had brushed mine when we both reached for the popcorn. The way his smile lingered longer when it was just the two of us. Maybe I was imagining it. I told myself that more than once, but it didn't quite take. Then came the sound, faint but distinct. Footsteps. Slow, careful. They padded down the hallway, pausing once before continuing. I turned my head toward the door just as it gave a soft, reluctant creak. In the gap, Eli's face appeared in the dim light. His voice was a whisper, as if the walls themselves might be listening. "Couldn't sleep," he said, stepping inside. Didn't want to wake Marcus. He didn't wait for an invitation before crossing to the bed. His weight dipped the mattress as he sat on the edge, hands resting loosely on his knees. Even in the dark, I could make out the restless energy in him, the kind that comes from a mind refusing to quiet down. "You okay?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. He shrugged, eyes glinting faintly. "Just thinking too much. It's been a long week." He didn't elaborate, but I didn't press. We talked in that half-asleep way people do when the night feels suspended. Little things. Fragments. He mentioned his breakup, how it had been coming for months but still hit harder than expected. He stared at the floor when he said it, like he was trying to read the grain of the wood instead of my expression. There was a pause, and in it, something shifted. It wasn't in the words. It was in the way he leaned back slightly, his shoulder brushing mine. In the way his voice grew quieter even though no one else was awake. "I don't even know why I came in here," he murmured, half smiling like he was trying to downplay the truth. I could have said a dozen things. I could have pointed toward the guest room, told him to get some rest. Instead, I asked, "And what if I do?" His eyes flicked to mine in the dark. "Not for long. Just enough. Then I guess I'd stay." We fell silent again, but the quiet was heavier now. The rain outside filled the gaps, each drop against the roof a reminder of how close the walls were around us. His knee brushed mine, a slow, accidental press that didn't pull away. I became aware of every small sound, his breathing, the rustle of fabric when he shifted slightly closer. My heart thudded, and I told myself it was because the moment was unexpected, because I was caught off guard. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. The mattress shifted again, his leg now parallel to mine, his shoulder a warm line against me. His words from earlier hung between us. About the breakup, about not sleeping, about not knowing why he'd come. My throat felt dry, and I wasn't sure what to do with my hands. I could sense him watching me even without looking. There was something in that gaze, something unspoken but undeniably there. I should have told him to leave, to go back to Marcus's room, to let the night pass like any other. I should have kept the door closed and the space between us untouched. But I didn't. When he shifted again, just enough of the air between us to feel different, I stayed exactly where I was. And when his hand rested briefly, lightly on the edge of the blanket near mine, I didn't pull away. I told myself it was harmless, that it meant nothing, that it would end there. But the truth was, it had already begun. Ask ChatGPT. The rain hadn't stopped, but it had softened, turning into a faint hiss against the roof. Eli was still beside me, our shoulders brushing in that subtle way that made it impossible to ignore. His weight on the mattress felt heavier now, not because he'd moved much, but because every nerve in me had started to register him. The faint heat from his arm, the way his breath slowed and deepened, the scent of his shampoo still fresh from the evening shower. "You're quiet," he murmured, his voice low, almost testing the air between us. "I'm thinking," I replied, though I wasn't sure thinking was the right word for it. My thoughts weren't organized enough for that. "About me?" His question was casual, but there was something deliberate in the way he asked it. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I shifted slightly, my arm grazing his. "Should I be?" I asked, my tone caught somewhere between a challenge and an invitation. Eli chuckled softly, but it wasn't a dismissive laugh. It was a kind that lingered, the kind that said he already knew the answer. "Maybe not," he said, "but I wouldn't mind if you did." The words landed heavier than I expected. My chest felt tight, and the silence that followed was alive with something we hadn't named yet. He shifted again, this time leaning back on his elbow so he could look at me. "You know Marcus would kill me," he said, and even though it sounded like a warning, there was no distance in his voice. "Yeah," I murmured, "he probably would." We stayed like that for a moment, neither of us looking away. My heart thudded loud enough I was certain he could hear it. And then, as if the thought had been there all along, Eli let his fingers brush against mine. It was light, tentative, a question more than a statement. I could have pulled away. I didn't. The touch lingered, his hand warm against mine, and the rain seemed to fade until it was just background noise. I felt the bed shift again as he slid a little closer, his knee against my leg now, his presence closing the last bit of space between us. "Adrian," he said, my name quieter than the rain, "I've wanted to tell you something for a long time." My breath caught. "Then tell me." His eyes didn't waver. "I've thought about you, more than I should have. And not just lately, for years." It felt like the air in the room thickened. I wasn't sure if it was relief, shock, or something else entirely, but my chest was tight and my mind was spinning. "Why now?" I asked. He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "Because I'm tired of pretending it's not there. And because tonight, I just couldn't stay in that room anymore." His hand turned, his palm brushing against mine, fingers curling slightly. The contact sent a shiver through me, one I didn't bother to hide. My mind screamed about boundaries, about Marcus, about the wrongness of this, but my body didn't move. Eli leaned in just enough for his voice to be the only thing I could hear. "If you want me to stop, say it now." I didn't. Instead, I let the moment stretch, my silence an answer in itself. His hand slid up my arm, slow, deliberate, his touch leaving a trail of warmth in its wake. We didn't kiss. We didn't cross into anything that couldn't be taken back in words. But the closeness was undeniable, the pull magnetic. The mattress creaked softly as he lay back beside me, our arms still brushing. My breathing fell in rhythm with his. And though neither of us spoke, the unspoken was louder than anything we could have said. When I finally glanced toward him, his eyes were half-lidded but still watching me. "You're not sending me away," he said quietly, more a statement than a question. "No," I admitted. The faintest smile touched his lips before he closed his eyes. His hand found mine again under the blanket, a quiet connection in the dark. And as the rain tapped steadily against the glass, I realized this wasn't some fleeting accident. It was a choice. One I had already made. "You said." Morning light spilled across the room in pale, fractured strips, slipping through the blinds and cutting across the tangled bedding. I woke with a strange stillness in my chest, the kind that comes before memory rushes back to fill it. The space beside me was empty, the impression of Eli's weight still faintly in the mattress. The quiet felt heavier than it had last night. From down the hall, I caught the sound of running water and a voice, Marcus's, light and teasing. Another voice answered, low and familiar, followed by the kind of laughter that should have been harmless. Should have been. My stomach tightened. I swung my legs out of bed and sat for a moment, elbows resting on my knees, listening. It was all so normal. Too normal. No pause in their conversation, no shift in tone. If Eli felt any different this morning, he was hiding it well. In the kitchen, they were side by side, Marcus pouring coffee, Eli leaning casually against the counter. He glanced at me when I stepped in, his expression unreadable but steady. A brief flicker of acknowledgement passed between us, so quick I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking for it. "You're up late," Marcus said, oblivious. "Didn't sleep much," I replied, my voice neutral. I reached for a mug, my fingers steady even though everything inside me wasn't. Eli sipped his coffee, eyes dropping to the table as Marcus stepped out to grab something from his room. The moment the door shut, Eli's gaze lifted back to mine. There it was, that same quiet intensity from last night. It didn't last long. He looked away again, as if afraid to let it linger. The morning stretched on, full of small, meaningless chatter I barely registered. I kept catching myself listening for something in his tone, some hidden layer beneath the easy rhythm of his words. If Marcus noticed the way my attention kept drifting, he didn't say. Later, I found Eli outside, standing near the back fence with his hands shoved in his pockets. I almost turned away, but he glanced over, holding my gaze in a way that made retreat impossible. "You okay?" he asked, though the question felt bigger than it sounded. "I don't know," I admitted. It was the closest I could get to the truth without pulling it all into the open. He hesitated before speaking again. "About last night," his voice trailed off, then steadied. "I don't regret it, but I get it if you want to pretend it never happened." The words hit harder than I expected. "Do you?" I asked, his brow furrowed slightly. "Do I what?" "Want to pretend." He looked down at the ground, kicking at a loose piece of gravel. "No," he said finally, "but I don't want to make things harder for you, or for Marcus." I wanted to tell him that it was already harder, that pretending wouldn't undo anything. Instead, I just nodded, my throat tight. The sound of the back door opening pulled us apart. Marcus stepped out, holding his keys and grinning about some joke I didn't catch. Eli fell back into his easy rhythm beside him, as if the conversation had never happened. They left together a few minutes later, Marcus driving, Eli in the passenger seat. As the car backed out of the driveway, Eli glanced at me through the window, just a quick look, but enough to make my chest ache. When the car turned the corner, the house fell silent again. I stood there in the doorway, the cool air pressing against my skin, trying to convince myself it would fade, that it was just a night, just a moment, just a mistake that could be buried. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Some changes don't undo themselves, and some moments don't let you go, no matter how far you try to step away.